session of the Enterprise City Council to order. Let the record show that all members of the council are present. First item on our agenda is our third quarter goal setting. I'm going to let Mr. Cholos kind of update us on where we're at, both through the end of the second quarter and then what we're looking at for the third quarter, and make sure, get us all on the same page. Of course, this, as we all remember, is the from our strategic plan that we set back in January. So we kind of already blocked out what we were going to do in each quarter. Obviously, that's been fluid ever since then. We get updated every other week on that. So some of this has moved in and out of the third quarter. So, Jonathan, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. Mayor and council, if you'll look on your Vision 2025 Q3, I'll start with three of the items that have complete by them. You'll see those kind of midway down. Those were some things as I was scrubbing our agenda that I noticed, well, we've already completed those even though they were in Q3, so we were actually ahead of schedule on some of these. So if you look, it says complete Weeda Street Park improvements. Those have been substantially completed, and I understand staff's working with Councilwoman Rich on a time to do a ribbon cutting or grand opening for that. Consider funding for engineering of Southern Bypass. That was approved at a couple council meetings ago. We are fast at work with the contract engineer Volkert out of Mobile to do that work. And then completion of the outdoor fitness center. If you've driven by Bellwood Road in PV Park area, you'll notice that facility has been constructed and is complete. I anticipate over the next couple of months the rest of PV Park to be completed as well. Most of the materials are on site, according to Barry. And Blake and his team are working on some, small items out there, including parking and ingress egress plan. So I thought that was good news. That's the first time we've had some that were in a later quarter that were executed ahead of time. So going back to the top, completing our Parks and Rec maintenance facility. Again, the building's complete. Within the Phase 5 paving contract, we have some funds there for parking. Once we get that parking completed, the facility will be ready to be utilized. Host Rucker Boulevard redevelopment meeting. So this is something that we had talked about looking at and engaging and actually have funded engaging a group. In this case, we used KPS, who did our comprehensive plan, to do a deeper dive onto Rucker Boulevard. Where should we spend the first dollar if we spend a dollar to make improvements? Is it sidewalks? Is it lighting? What does that look like? So one of the first things, we had a meeting, Mayor and I did with KPS, and one of the next steps was recommended to host a redevelopment meeting with community stakeholders in and around there. So on July 22nd, we have reserved some space thanks to the Enterprise City School System at Rucker Boulevard Elementary. We'll get more details out on those times. But right now, it looks like we would do an hour sometime around 5 p.m., plus or minus, for residents along the Rucker Boulevard area, hear their concerns, what they would like to see, what they think some of the problems are, and then something like 6 to 7, hear from some of the stakeholders that have businesses along Rucker Boulevard to hear what their concerns are and just get that feedback as we start this process. So like I said on that, I'll get more information out, but I do think it's something that obviously is going on in Q3 that we need to have a deliverable
So you
on.
think that's like a 5 to 7 type of schedule if we want to put that on our calendars?
I believe that's right, but I will let you know if
Okay.
times slip, half an hour or so. But either way, but I don't anticipate it going, starting before 4:30. I don't anticipate it going beyond 7:30.
Gotcha.
I need to coordinate with Jason Fondren with KPS to find out, what traffic's like coming down from Birmingham on that day. But right now, 5 to 7 would be the target.
And as it comes closer to time, we're going to do some media releases and
Absolutely.
social media, all that.
We're inform the public. That's who we want to come to the meeting, so absolutely. The complete City Hall, so I've moved that to August 1st. Sometime that week, we would anticipate doing a ribbon cutting. That's certainly on schedule right now, based on the progress that we see every day down there. Things are moving, materials have been ordered. So it's really, at this point, a few punch list items and doing the exterior of the facility. If you've been in or haven't had a chance to go in, I encourage you to do that. Most of our people have moved into their permanent homes at this point. This week, we started court back at City Hall.
Nice.
So the courtroom is set up. So that was a big step forward. Complete Phase 5 of the street resurfacing. You've seen that list. I think every week we're sending out an update to the council on that. We're probably about 75% done with the streets. There's also some parking areas that are included in that. One of those has been completed at the airport to expand the parking apron. I just talked to you, and also the Weeda Street Park, but we've also got in there plans to do the front of City Hall, to redo that and to coincide with the new opening of the remodeled City Hall. And some parking over at PV and the Parks and Rec Maintenance Facility on 167 there in the industrial park. We do have Phase 6 and 7 street resurfacing preliminary proposals from Poly that have been submitted to the city engineer. So I think a good goal this quarter would be to come up with a final list of Phase 6 so that we can go ahead and work that amount into the budget for next year, or proposed amount. Obviously, we won't know until bids. If you recall, on Phase 5, we actually came in under what we estimated the cost to be. Hopefully, that stays true for Phase 6. Quarterly update on customer experience for city services and quarterly nuisance property updates. Those are ones that obviously we've completed every quarter this year, but we're going to keep rolling those forward until you tell me you don't want to hear any more updates on them.
I think at least until we get settled into City Hall, wouldn't y'all think?
And we've, to date, we're still on pace on that 20 nuisance properties a month. We're actually a little bit ahead of pace because of the people that have responded positively to it and are working to mitigate the nuisance on their own. They're actually bringing their properties up to code without going through the demolition process. Old Coppinville agreement to council. Again, that's still with Enterprise City Schools. Our city attorney has tried to reach out to the new school system attorney, and they're trying to coordinate getting a draft back that they can live with. So if you remember, part of our strategic plan was to look at, I think many of you have talked about the state of the library. Certainly over the last year, we've had to put some money into it for things like a new air conditioner. We've had some structural issues out there, security issues with an old alarm system. So, given that we don't want to spend taxpayer money unwisely, one of the things that was recommended for next year's budget is to fund a library study. Is that the right location for the library? Is it the right size? What should a library look like for a town the size of Enterprise to meet the demand for our citizens? So we think that would be a good first step to evaluate that, given that we're not ready to pull the trigger, and then look at the difference in what it would cost to remodel our existing library versus building new, and just kind of evaluate the different options that would be available, and let administration in the future, whether that's the near term or the long term, make that decision about when and where to spend those funds. Complete the soccer complex. That's not just PV Park area, but also Phase 1 of that multi-purpose field that we partnered with the junior college on. That first phase actually had play on it this last weekend. So we need to schedule a time to ceremoniously, cut a ribbon on that. But it's substantially complete. The bridge has been completed. A lot of work's been going into that project. Again, on that, I would commend our Public Works Department, Reggie Marsh in particular with the sewer crew, who did a lot of that work in-house. So if you recall, we had about a $6 to $6.5 million budget for that. Once the bids came in on phase one, we had spent almost $5 million to accomplish both. Our city engineer worked with his team, Shannon Roberts, Barry Mott, to figure out what they could do in-house. And within that other $1 million budget number, we have successfully and will successfully complete phase two. So that's a huge cost savings. If we had gone back out to bid that out, that could have ranged from $4 to $6 million. So conservatively, I'd say the city saved about $3 million doing that project in-house.
And that'll include renovating the restrooms over there.
That's correct. If you go by there now, you'll see the trusses on the ground for the roof. The shell of the building is pretty much all that's going to remain. Everything else, including plumbing, we've taken it off septic, hooked it up to sewer, all new fixtures, doors in the for the restrooms. So it'll look like a new facility. So very proud of our team for that. I've talked about what we've completed, airport project, County Road 606 relocation, so part of our airport improvement plan was a runway extension project. First step of that, outside of acquiring the property, which we needed, and the council did that last year, we were awarded grant funds of about $2.4 million to relocate that county road. We've worked with the county and AlDOT to do that as it ties into Boll Weevil Circle. So sometime this quarter, we anticipate them starting that process. I think the design work's been done, the route's been approved by AlDOT and the design plans. So we anticipate that in the next 30 to 60 days. Your A-Trip project on Shellfield Road in 27, again, this is something that I'll keep going back to. If you remember, it seems like 4.5 years ago, we started out with a problem that the council brought and said, hey, this is our priority. We want to fix and improve the safety at this intersection. So we looked, and part of that solution had to come from AlDOT. It's their road. So we looked at different ways to fund that, what AlDOT would permit us to do, and so it was suggested to apply for an A-Trip 2 grant, which would use state funds, wouldn't be on the backs of the taxpayers, and AlDOT recommended a roundabout. There was a lot of controversy that surrounded that roundabout. If you remember, we had public hearings, and eventually I think most people got on board. They might not have liked it, but they said that's the safest solution. Preliminary bids came back for that at around $5 million total. The grant was for $2 million. And there were some other property acquisitions that needed to occur, and pushback on AlDOT and said this isn't going to work. And that process took us till about 2023. AlDOT then came back after about 6 months with a plan to do a signalization of that intersection, which would cost about $1.7 million and be within the parameters of the A-Trip 2 grant. So at this point, they're waiting on materials to come in. So that project was let back in November of 24. We are at this point waiting just for materials to come in to install the lights. It's an AlDOT project. City does not have anything to do with it at this point. We've applied for the grant. The grant was awarded. AlDOT's approved the plans. At this point, I would say this quarter, that project should start, assuming materials come in when AlDOT has expressed that they would come in. So, status report from ESCC on Workforce Development Center. I think that's something the mayor is meeting with President Long and potentially Chancellor Baker this week. Emily, is that right, still this week, or has it moved to next week for the Workforce Development Center meeting? Tomorrow. So we should get an update from that out at the community college tomorrow on the Workforce Development Center. And, I think they're projecting later this year for that to actually be open. So again, back to our strategic plan. Several years ago, one of the things that came up and kept coming up was workforce development. How do we fix that? How do we tie in and get people skills to jobs that are needed in the area? We brought in the community college because I think the council decided that maybe the city wasn't the right answer. We're not in the workforce field. We're not in education. But we have partners out there who are. One of the needs expressed was a place to actually train the people, to get them the skills that the college didn't have. And so this council approved $10 million over 20 years to go to the college, $500,000 a year as part of the overall construction project. That will be over a 20,000 square foot facility. As you know, modular space, auto tech. It also freed up spacing for them to do additional classes around nursing, LPN, and ultimately create an RN program. So a lot of good things were addressed as part of that, and certainly you should feel excited that you were part of making that happen. Complete Main Street lighting project. We are on track to do that this quarter. We're going to do that in-house. As you recall, when we looked to bid it out, there were water lines that Alabama Power said if they were going to do it and maintain it and replace the poles, that we would have to find another way to water our plants along Main Street and the planters. So we came back and engineered a solution in-house. That was not a code violation. It was more of a preference from Alabama Power and a risk assessment that they did. So we looked at doing it in-house. It actually saved us money to do it in-house. The problem has been figuring out a vehicle to order 132 lights and comply with state bid law. We finally figured out a mechanism to do that through Sourcewell, who's on an approved contract list for the state, and now we're waiting on those to come in, and Public Works will install those lights this quarter. And I think that was brought out of a concern from Councilman Goolsby in our strategic planning meetings about the visibility or lack thereof in the downtown area.
And the sections where they have put in the new bulbs,
Yes, sir.
it makes a remarkable difference.
It does. It does. And that, if you remember that, Barry had spent a lot of time doing some lumen studies out there. So that was about our third iteration of different lights to try out. But it definitely looks, you can notice the difference.
Yeah.
Complete phase one of the wayfinding project. So had one hiccup with that, but I anticipate it being done this quarter. Of course, our friends at AlDOT asked us for some more information before they would permit us to put up the signage. That information has been provided to them along with some emails from over the last year where we had gone to AlDOT to get their requirements for the signage. So I don't know if there's just a transition in leadership or positions that maybe people weren't familiar with the project, but we've got that. It was bid out. It was awarded, and the signs are in. The great part about that is the initial budget for that was somewhere in the $160,000 range to do phase one. I think the bids came in at under $90,000. So we're going to be under budget. If that would have held, and we knew that going into it, we may have been able to do all three phases, in 1 year. And we'll certainly evaluate that at the budget come August. Fund the PCI study. So again, something that the council has had success with. A PCI study that was done about 7 years ago is kind of how we base the street resurfacing and water line replacement projects. As 7 years go by and looking ahead, it'll be 8 next year. We believe that this would be the time to reassess the streets. Obviously, the streets that were, a 60 7 years ago might be a 50 now, or they might be a 30. We don't know. So going back and reevaluating that so we can continue the momentum that we have and continue to program funds to do street resurfacing every year is important. And so we would recommend redoing that study in next year's budget. And then Rucker Boulevard connectivity study. So again, this is one that we had a strategic plan or a comprehensive plan that showed a need for connectivity, sort of when you drew it out in a comprehensive plan, it looked like a second ring around Enterprise. It wasn't exactly a circle, but it connected a lot of our major arteries, but a mile or two out of the Bullweevil Circle. So I think last year you had asked us to go back and pick a section or two of that. We did that. Those two sections were approximately somewhere on Porter Lunsford Road to Rucker Boulevard, and then from Rucker Boulevard to US 84. And so when we did that and we did an evaluation on the probable cost for that, it was about $41.2 million to do the entire segment, which was not within our budget. So at this point, what we're waiting on, we've gone back to look at the Porter Lunsford to Rucker Boulevard route. There are some developers in the works of doing some subdivisions that have expressed an interest in tying in. And what I've asked is that they come back to us if they can tie up all of the property that they need to get that road run all the way out. And then we'll have, if the city were to get involved with it, I think all of you know from your experience on the council, the prices seem to go up for a myriad of reasons. But we're not really in the real estate negotiation business, and I'm not sure that you would want us to be. But if they do get a route plan that's feasible, we'll come back and talk. Those numbers are still expensive, but would be more manageable in the $5 to $8 million range to complete that section of road. And so that's something that we're looking at right now with those developers. And if we get that information, whenever we get that information, we would bring that back towards the council to see if we had an appetite to partner in that.
And anything on Q2 that was not complete, we've moved it to Q3, right? But
Yes, sir.
so that completes our Q3 vision there. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Is there any outstanding, kind of open issues that, this is kind of our agreement is to try to hold off on throwing any more rocks in the wagon until we get to these quarterly checkpoints. So does anybody have anything that needs to be brought up at this time? Yeah, I mean, I think, Jonathan, I assume you're reasonably confident that staff can complete these items this quarter, right?
I am. And so one point of business for that, since a few of these involve next year's budget, I did want to point out on August the 14th, I don't know if you all received an email from Leanne yet or not. She's at a conference this week, but on August the 14th, that's when we're planning to have our budget meeting here at the Civic Center. We are still working out a schedule for that, but probably sometime around 8:30 in the morning till about 3:30 in the afternoon on the 14th. With that, I did want to ask the council if there were any other items from our strategic planning meetings that you want us to consider, within the budget as a priority for the council.
Of course, we've got the library study on here. We got the PCI study on here. We had kind of already programmed those things out. The street resurfacing will obviously get plugged into the budget, right?
Yes, sir. That's what we've done every year, and we've tried to include some of because of the quantities and favorable bid schedules that we've been getting. We've been trying to do some of our parking and other things in their alleyways, downtown, that kind of stuff. But those are just the ones that I had on the strategic plan that would need to get funded in there. But if there are any other, studies or priorities of work that the council knows about, And certainly don't have to just tell me today, we've got until the 14th, but the sooner Leanne and I can get that information, the sooner we can look at all the other department heads as they've submitted their budgets to us or submit their budgets to us. You know, they will also have priorities. And as you know, there's going to be more requests than there is funding to go around. So I just want to make sure that if there's anything that is a priority for the council to consider, that we don't leave that off the list.
What's that date? Did you say August 14th?
August 14th. Yes, ma'am.
I think I'm already committed, like from the beginning of the year with some work, but I'll check back with you and I can.
Okay. And if
Turn
we,
it into
if we
my
need to
calendar.
reschedule that so you can be there, I can coordinate that with Leanne.
Okay, I'll get with you tomorrow on
Okay.
on that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so you've heard Jonathan. If something comes to mind, let's just go ahead and get it out there. Even if it's not currently on our strategic plan, we can throw it in the mix and see if we have the funds for it.
Where do we stand on the study for the property of Old Junior that we have discussed?
Yes, sir. So that'll be part of this KPS group as they come back down. If you remember, we asked them to look at not just Rucker Boulevard, but also green space and do a deeper dive on where those might be. So I'll make sure to, by the 22nd, to have Jason also address that as well.
Thank you.
Mr. President, there are two things I was remiss. There's two things I would like to see if we could add to Q3, or at least to start to discuss in Q3. One is about the railroad on Delbert Avenue. It's just a problem. Our staff cuts and maintains so much of the area there, and then they don't, because I guess it's the railroad's responsibility. I was told, I would just like some more information on if it's anything of what we can do to make that better,
So-
or hold them, or
So would you be satisfied at some point in the third quarter? We got an update maybe from staff, maybe after they consult with the railroad.
that's exactly
on-
what I would.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. Jonathan, you think that's doable?
It is, and I can answer a little bit of that. So
Okay.
generally speaking, and it's not everywhere in town, there are certain areas where the railroad, this is not true. But by and large, across the footprint of the railroad, their right-of-way is 50-foot left and right of center of the railroad.
Is that 100 total feet or 50?
100 total feet. So 50 feet to the left, 50 feet to the right. In some areas, that's not the case, particularly in some areas of our downtown. We have reached out to them in the past about maintenance of that. And so obviously they have, similar to what AlDOT kind of tells us, like if we will do the maintenance that we want to do, and it might be once or twice a year, but if you would like to do that, you know, with more frequency, feel free. And so that's sort of the answer that we got the last time we approached the railroad. And we were looking at it from the perspective of our downtown area as nuisances in places where people were using their right-of-way for businesses. So think back behind like Christian Mission and some of those areas. Not that they're not good, but those areas were on technically on railroad right-of-way. Railroad wasn't going to enforce that necessarily. So did they want us to look at enforcement or maintenance of their deal, or would they have any issue if we did that? And the answer generally was no, but let us know if you're going to do it.
So this is obviously a potential staff and budget, limited staff resources, and obviously, as with everything, budget implications if we decided to step up our maintenance inside of that right of way.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
And no real way to enforce our local ordinances on the railroad?
There could be. We haven't tried
Okay.
that approach.
All right, so I guess maybe let's just schedule a brief a workshop, I guess,
Sure.
inside of our work sessions in the quarter. And I guess just present us, I guess we just have a brief discussion about what our options might be.
Yes, sir. And a lot of the, the pushback that we've ever received from the railroad has and this took me by surprise as we recently were working on that rail extension into the industrial park. We talked about crossing on grade and had to work through permitting with AlDOT. And AlDOT informed me that they weren't that experienced with it because the railroad was here before most of the roads.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't that familiar with having to cross one of their roads with rail because they had built the roads while the rail had been there some 100 years ago. So it did put it in perspective about just how long the railroads had been there and how, how they view their property. But that being said, we do have good communication with them right now, Councilwoman, and we will reach out to them, and I'll get a brief to the council.
Okay. And the other thing is, I know we talked about funding the PCI study and also budgeting for the Phase 6. And I don't know if where this road, I don't know, but Delville Avenue, I'm on Delville Avenue there, I guess, but it's an area as you're approaching closer to Highland, it's a dip in the road. It's like a sink almost, and it's getting progressively worse. And I've gotten a lot of calls about that. It's been like that almost for the longest. It's naturally been that way. It's never been, I don't say never, but I rarely recall it being level. It's some part, it's a vertical dip in the road, kind of long, and I was just wondering, have we ever looked at that to see if it's something that we can do in-house with that to make it a little smoother, or, because it's getting worse.
Glenn, do you know when Daleville Avenue is scheduled to be resurfaced? Can you look on 6 and 7 while we're here? And but no, we have not. I know that Shannon's probably done some patchwork on there as I've driven it over the last year or two.
And I was just wondering if it's just a resurfacing issue or maybe something else, because it's not a hole.
Is this coming from downtown, is this before you go down the hill? When you leave the boulevard area, or is it?
If you,
Because Highland's the last road at the end of the boulevard.
it's right before you get to Highland. It's
Coming-
right there where
Going toward town.
Going toward town. You know the house that was on our screens last week, that on Delby
Yep,
Avenue, it's
yep.
right there,
Okay, so before you go up the hill?
before you go up the
Yeah.
hill.
Okay, all right.
And
I mean, I drive the road all the time.
And it could have been, I mean, I won't speak for Shannon, but it sounds like it could have been something that we did maybe a cut on at some point to run a sewer line or a water line, and it settled, and the whole cross-section where we cut sank. So we
Well,
can,
I'll add it to the list, and y'all can just obviously, we're not armed with the information. We need to have a discussion tonight about it. So I'll just add it to the list, and some point in a future meeting, y'all can report back to us on
Yes,
what
sir.
y'all think. Maybe y'all come back and say there's not a problem, or maybe you come back and say these are our options. So,
okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
anything else? All right. Is that all you had, Mr. Tullis?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, we're running a little ahead of schedule, so we'll move forward to review our agenda for tonight before we go into executive session. All right, is everybody looking at the agenda? So we've got our regular stuff, roll call, prayer, pledge of allegiance, approve the agenda. Got the consent agenda consisting of Work session minutes from June 3rd and 17th. We got all our accounts payables that were distributed last week. Contract billings to Poly for multipurpose rec complex, pre-demolition asbestos sampling for engineering, for our demolition projects, our Cherry Hill Road sewer replacement, and ALDOT project. What ALDOT project is?
That was my question. Which ALDOT project
Yeah.
is that?
Jonathan and Glenn, which ALDOT project is that on?
$45,000?
What is it? Commerce Park.
So, I don't know if you recall, but we received an industrial access grant, submitted a permit for Enterprise Commerce Park. So, it's a 100% grant.
So that's our new subdivision, our new industrial park.
That's right. And it's the design, engineering and design is not part of the grant award for that.
So this is our portion of that project?
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. All right, travel request for Main Street. Any questions, any other questions on consent agenda? All right, and we'll have pros to the floor, staff reports. There's no old business. We do have some new business, declaring the election of Sonia and Greg. Congratulations. So as some of you may or may not have known, when after qualifications end, if there's no competing candidates, then we go ahead and certify those elections. Right, Beverly? That's all we're doing tonight. Then we've got the mayor's, we're going to authorize him for the KVN of Alabama, LLC. So this is the easement back behind Annie's, and I see Ashley nodding her head. So everybody remembers this, behind Annie's and off of Lee Street, behind that strip of buildings. So we're going to get an easement from the property owner so that we can make those needed improvements, widen the road, move telephone pole, make some room in there for the businesses to be able to use city services. Then we've got authorized mayor to execute an agreement with Nextsite LLC. So this is, Jonathan, the Nextsite, just update us on that. I believe this is renewing our agreement with Nextsite.
Yes, sir. So, council may or may not remember, but Nextsite is who we had engaged with approximately, I don't know, 4 years ago at this point, to help us out with retail recruitment. So, to date, we've had some fairly good success with them. They attend, international shopping center trade shows, speak to developers, and really help. If you know a commercial developer that has property in town, they have probably worked with Nextsite to market their property at no cost to them. But they keep an inventory of what vacancies we have, and then they also do a lot of demographic work to help support, whatever entity, if trying to think of somebody that's here, but if Buffalo Wild Wings, for example, has certain demographics that they look for in a market, they help provide that data to the real estate arm of Buffalo Wild Wings, or the site selection consultant for Buffalo Wild Wings, to make sure that not only is it in an area that meets those demographic concerns, but also that the community does, whether that's, household income, and it gets really layered. But they've done a good job of working with the entities for that. I would recommend continuing that relationship, as we've had success with them. Those areas include redevelopment of spaces that were vacant, like JCPenney's, So you go back to what you, as a council, suggested in our economic development and retail policy. You had certain areas that you were looking at, the southern bypass, the downtown area, and then I guess the redevelopment of the area in front of Rucker Boulevard and down Rucker Boulevard. And so, I could paint a picture for you of the best success we've had was probably from Builders Cash and Carry there, where that property was vacant for a number of years. You had Office Depot that vacated that property. Then you had Rite Aid that vacated that property. J.C. Penney's pulled out. I think it was called Coffee Kettle or something, had gone away, and that building was empty. And then Morgan Square Mall had kind of deteriorated a little bit. And so, you saw things like Planet Fitness or Tropical Smoothie, Buffalo Wild Wings, McAllister's, Ross Dress for Less, and Starbucks start to repopulate that. And that didn't just happen organically. It took a lot of work, partnering with our economic development folks at Wiregrass Economic Development and people like Nextsite that could do the deeper dives for that. So that's one example of the successes. We've had a lot of other deals that have come here. You've met with some of those developers that they continue to work on, and I think it's been a good partnership.
And the contract is performance-based.
It's performance-based. That's correct. We don't pay them an annual amount or whatever. I guess the way to say that is they eat what they kill.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? And of course, everybody's met Chuck Branch with Nextsite, so I think everybody should be familiar with him and with his company. All right. Next item is authorize the mayor to execute a lease agreement with the Enterprise Business Incubator. So, any changes to? We're updating this, right?
Yes, we are updating it. It turns out that the tenant, that there's some cookie company that's up there. The tenant has grown and needs an additional manufacturing base, so we've just expanded the area, the footprint that Hello Chunky's going to have up there. So that's all it is we're just growing the area and giving him more space.
All right. So,
Are we increasing his budget, the cost?
Yes, it's going to be the same,
same rate.
yes, the
Square foot rate?
square foot rate that we have, and it's going to continue to grow per year. So yes, there will be additional funding coming in for that lease.
This is really the first time we've had anybody in there doing what the building was meant for some time, right, Jonathan?
That's correct. Previously, Arista Aviation, HS Automotive, but it's been at least the last 4 or 5 years that we've had some. We had a tech company that's renting a couple of spaces up there right now, and we've utilized that space for Wiregrass Transit as well. Let's see, but
We're actually about to extend the lease for the tech company up there for an additional year. They're happy up there, so I just got word on that today from Jesse.
so, but outside of that, for the actual manufacturing space, it's been 5-6 years since
Yeah,
we've had
that's what I thought.
a real tenant. So, and if you just, for the public's benefit and your benefit, the way the incubator is set up is it's on a graduated lease schedule. So whoever goes in there, those rates were set and adopted by the Incubator Advisory Board. Of course, that's just advisory, but those are their recommendations, independent of the council. Subsequently, that rate gets more expensive every year for up to 5 years. The thought process being that if the business can't adopt market rate rents by year 5 of being in business, it's time for them to move out on their own one way or the other. And if it's at market rate rent in year 5, they should move out. Typically, an incubator would have an average of about 2.6 to 3 years of shelf life for an occupant there. They either figure out they can make it or break it within that first 3 years. So it's pretty rare that they ever get to that point. They start looking at for other space about the second or third year.
Gotcha. All right. Any other questions on that? Okay, next item was an ABC license request. We're just introducing that and calling for a hearing on July 15th. And that is it for our regular session, pretty straightforward session. Then we'll have our E911 board meeting. We're going to review minutes. We're going to approve payables. And that is it for the E911 board meeting. So then we'll reconvene in regular session, have the mayor's report and council member comments. Everybody good with that agenda? Any needed changes, additions, deletions? All right, turn with me back to our work session. Looks like Ashley and Jonathan are requesting an executive session regarding real estate and economic development. So I will entertain a motion. Looks like we're planning on spending about anywhere from 40 minutes to an hour on this subject. So I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session regarding real estate and economic development.
I make a motion that we go into executive session for real estate and economic development.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to go into executive session. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will return probably in about an hour, but we'll recess the or we'll adjourn from the work session and convene in our regular meeting at 6 o'clock.
tonight because he had to go visit one of his members in Georgia, so he wasn't able to make it back. Can you get the prayer?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
So, for future, I think it works better if this is just put like right there. So it's the first name the president sees, and then that's what Carol wants. I'll put that on your annual performance review.
Don was telling her, and Tom's got in trouble because they're back there whispering, making noise. I was in place by a second.
You were. Everybody's not, but you were. You and Eugene.
Oh, Baker, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna tell him that, wherever he is.
Oh, okay, yes, yes, sir.
All right, I'll call this meeting of the Enterprise City Council to order. Let the record show that all members of the council are present. If you would, please stand with me for the opening prayer and pledge of allegiance. This evening, the prayer will be given by Mayor Cooper.
May we pray. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light. Keep us forever in thy path, we pray. Dear Father, we come to thee this afternoon with bowed heads and humble hearts as we try to carry on the business of the city. As we go about each item one by one, give us the courage, the strength, is to do what we need to do for the betterment of our city. Thank you for those that came out tonight and attendance, and may we have a safe trip back home. These are the blessed words in our son's Jesus' name. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Council, you should have the agenda in front of you that we discussed in the per-hour work session. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda of the meeting as submitted.
I move to approve the agenda of the meeting as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda of the meeting as submitted. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will now consider the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the council for review, are considered to be routine, and will be enacted by one motion of the City Council with no separate discussion. If separate discussion is desired on an item, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda by request of a member of the City Council. I will now call for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Let the record show I'll be abstaining due to a conflict with accounts payable B. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now have privilege of the floor. This part of the meeting is where anyone in attendance tonight who wishes to address the council may do so for 3 minutes. If there is a public hearing on the agenda for the topic you are concerned with, please wait until that public hearing opens to address the council. If they choose, staff, mayor, and council will respond to your comments during the appointed times later in the meeting. Repetitive, disruptive, and disparaging comments will not be tolerated. If you are found out of order, your privileges can and will be revoked. Does anyone wish to address the council at this time? All right, I see no one. We'll move on to staff reports. Do we have any staff reports? Chief?
Evening, Council, Mayor. So let me clarify some things real quick, because I don't want misinformation getting out. There's been talk and conversation about crime rates, crime statistics, and enterprises going up X amount. That's one of the reasons why I started creating 3 years ago to do the annual police report, which has all of our crimes in it, that we report to NIBRS. NIBRS has taken the place of the old UCR UCR code. NIBRS takes more information from our records. NIBRS is held by the FBI. We started to pay into that. It's a national incident-based reporting system. It has a broad array of offenses, types and amounts of property loss, demographic information about victims, offenders, and persons arrested, what type of weapon, if any, was used in the incident. It's more detailed. It takes in on crimes, hate crimes, the seriousness of different things, even just the quality of life in a neighborhood. The issue we have with this information was it was just starting to get collected in the end of 2021, about the same time y'all came into office. In 2022, after we started to contribute that information, 22 and 23 are 2 years that we have into the NIBRS system. That is all the information the FBI currently has. So 2 years. So if you go from a UCR, an old system that took very specific small amounts of information, murder rate, rape, serious violent crimes, but they don't take in the consideration of quality of life crimes, thefts, elderly abuse, things like that. When you get this more information, certainly things are going to show it's worse. You can't look at any cities, especially in Alabama that I was just looking at, that doesn't show any different, that their crime rate has skyrocketed. Again, we only have 2 years of information into FBI. FBI, they put out our crimes throughout the nation, and they're 2 years behind. That's, again, all the data they have. At the end of every year is when we give information. So I encourage citizens, I encourage people, I encourage anybody that really wants to know what the crime rate truly is, an accurate picture of, say, within the last year, to go on Enterprise Police Department's website, look up the annual report, and compare apples to apples from 1 year to the other. That's really the only way we're going to get a good idea. I gave something to the council real quick. Let me read. I don't take too much time because, again, this information's out there. Let's discuss the crimes statistics between 2020 and 2024 that is reported with the City of Enterprise. 2020 burglaries were 727. 2024, there were 508. Murder was 2. 2024, there were 0. Assaults were 384. In 2024, there was 269. Rape was reported. That doesn't mean that we had convictions or anything else, but reported was 45 in 2020. In 2024, there's 38. What I'm saying is, let me go, robbery was 15, we went down to 4. What I'm saying is, don't discount the work of law enforcement officers. These were when we were working very low shifts, very few officers, and we were still putting people in jail. Violent people that needed to go to jail, and that will not end. I don't really care who's up here or anywhere else. My job is to keep the community safe. My officer's job is to keep the community safe, and that is what we're aiming for. Statistics can be construed, they can be changed, and they're out of date. They're not even accurate. So I just want to be cautious of everybody. Just read the annual reports, ask questions. I'm here for the taking of let me show you what the reports show. So that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Any other staff reports that weren't able to be given in our previous work session? All right, seeing no more staff reports, we'll move on to old business, of which we have none. So we'll move on to new business. We'll review and consider Resolution 070125, the declaration of election of Council Member District Number 1. I introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 070125, providing for the declaration of election of Sonia Wheeler Rich to the office of Council Member Number 1. Do I hear a motion?
I move to adopt the resolution 070125.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 070125. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations, Councilwoman Rich. Next item is to review and consider Resolution 070125A, Declaration of Election, Councilmember Number 3. I introduce and call for consideration of Resolution 070125A, providing for the declaration of election of Greg Paget to the office of Councilmember Number 3. Do I hear a motion?
I move.
Move to adopt Resolution 070125A.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 070125A. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations, Councilman Paget. All right, we'll now consider authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with KVN of Alabama LLC at 107 East Lee Street. I call for a motion to authorize the mayor to execute a use, easement, and conveyance agreement between the City of Enterprise and KVN of Alabama LLC related to the property located at 107 East Lee Street, Enterprise, Alabama, as per terms of the agreement. Do I hear a motion?
I move to authorize the mayor to execute the agreement as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to execute the agreement as submitted. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will now consider authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with NextSite LLC. I call for a motion to authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with NextSite LLC to provide research, marketing, and consulting services for the City of Enterprise as per the terms of the agreement. Do I hear a motion?
Move to authorize the mayor to execute the agreement as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to execute the agreement as submitted. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider authorizing the mayor to execute an amended lease agreement. Enterprise Business Incubator, Hello Chonky Company, LLC. I call for a motion to authorize the mayor to execute an amended agreement between the City of Enterprise and Hello Chonky Cookie Company, LLC, for the lease of Manufacturing Bay Number 1, Manufacturing Bay Number 2, Office 1, and Office 2, located within the Enterprise Business Incubator at 102 Commerce Drive as per the terms of the lease agreement. Do I hear a motion?
I move to authorize the mayor to execute the amended lease agreement as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to execute the amended lease agreement as submitted. Is there any further discussion?
I'll be recusing.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now introduce an ABC license request. Is that my microphone? We'll introduce an ABC license request of BSC Smart LLC. I introduce a request from BSC Smart LLC, doing business as BSC Smart, for a retail beer and retail wine off-premise only license located at 621 Bowlville Circle, Suite 9. I'll call for a public hearing to be held at the regular meeting scheduled for July 15th, 2025. We'll not address that issue tonight. We'll now recess our regular session of the Enterprise City Council and convene into the E911 board meeting. All right, I call this E911 board meeting to order. Let the record show that all members of the board are present. We'll review of minutes, June 3rd, 2025. Board, you should have a copy of those minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the June 3rd, 2025 E911 board meeting minutes as written.
Move to approve the E911 board meeting minutes as written.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the E911 board meeting minutes as written. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have no old business, so we'll move to new business. Accounts payable A, June 2025. I call for a motion to approve accounts payable A for June 2025 in the amount of $2,226.72. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve accounts payable A for June 2025.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve accounts payable A for June 2025. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The E911 board meeting is adjourned. And we will reconvene in our regular session. Mayor, do you have a report for us?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank Chief Moore for clearing up that misinformation about the crime rate here in Enterprise. Let me be very clear. The officers of the Enterprise Police Department are doing an excellent job keeping our city and our citizens safe. If you have any questions about crime rates, I encourage you to reach out directly to Chief Moore. If you have questions about any of our departments, reach out to those leaders. I urge you to go to the source for accurate information. Over the next several weeks, you will hear many opinions and viewpoints. The best thing you can do is to seek the truth, gather facts, and form your own informed opinion. Just yesterday, I received our annual audit from the Chief Financial Officer, and I'm proud to report that Enterprise is in the best financial shape it has been in for nearly 20 years. That reflects the vision and the leadership of this council. While we should take a moment to celebrate, we want to work and continue. Tonight, we reviewed our third quarter goals, ongoing improvements to streets and water lines, continued investments in our first responders, and quality of life projects for our residents. This weekend, Beaver Park was full of families and kids, a sign of our growing youth sports program. Our tourism numbers are also climbing, with more people attending city events than ever before. I would also like to say that this afternoon we had Kim Justice from the Alabama Veterans Office to stop by and to give us a report on the repairs that are going on at the VA home on Highway 51, plus the fact to know that the patients are doing well over at the Enterprise Rehab Center. And we should say thanks be to God that we didn't have to send them to other out-of-town facilities, that we were able to compensate and to keep them right here at home. I hope our residents are proud of what we have achieved and confident in the direction we are headed. There's more to do, but we are on track to keep building our city where people want to live, work, worship, and play. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilwoman Rich.
Good to see everyone out tonight. I want to commend our Public Works Department and everyone that's helped with the modifications to the Wheeler Street Park. I get a text about every other day or so with something new. It's really exciting. We're gonna have a ribbon cutting, so more people come out, families to really enjoy that new and improved area there. Also, thank you, Chief, for giving us a brief update on our police department. And you all have a good night.
Councilman Goolsbee?
Well, I would like to congratulate Councilman Rich and Councilman Paget on going back into another 4 years. Glad that you'll be here and anchor the group back down, with Turner and I being retiring. Thank you, Chief Moore, for updating us on the amount of problems that we have and the things that we accomplished there. And I'm so glad to hear that our city is in such a good financial condition. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Councilman Paget?
Mostly ditto to everything everyone has already said. We heard an awful lot in the last couple of hours of work session. It makes me very excited to see that our goals and vision is coming to fruition. Some of this stuff takes a very long time, and it seems like some of the stuff we talked about in the first week of this council is finally starting to come to fruition. I'm excited to know that there's about to be some announcements that the public may be very happy about as soon as we can cross that finish line.
Councilman Johnson?
And I'll say I'll be excited too for that piece there. But thank you everyone for coming tonight. Thank you for our regulars, and thank you for our citizens that are watching online. I know quite a few. In fact, I got a couple texts a little while ago. I'd like to say, Chief Moore, thank you so very much for clearing that up again. Thank you. And thank you again to all our city workers. I'll put everybody up against anybody, any city in the state. I had a meeting not too long ago with a lady who couldn't find certain stuff, and we sat for 2.5 hours, and I was able to clear up stuff. And like mentioned earlier, call us. My phone number's online. I'll give it to you, 334-806-1994. I'll sit down and talk with you and explain where to find the things, and I've done that with a few folks. So I've done that for 4 years. I want to continue doing that. I'm just saying, ask the department heads or ask us. We'll help you find whatever you're looking for, whether your road's going to get fixed, your sewer line, when your garbage is being picked up. But just ask somebody. Do the research. We're more than happy to do that. So please call. God bless and thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the comments before me. I don't really have anything to add. Certainly, Chief, I appreciate the information you brought, and definitely congratulations to Sonia and Greg. Certainly have enjoyed working with Sonia over 8 years now, and Greg the last 5 years, so, or close to 5 years. And so congratulations on that, much deserved. And that is all I've got. So we're going to adjourn until 5 p.m. Tuesday, July 15th. So that's 2 weeks from tonight at 5 o'clock right in this room. We will see you then.
I can't wait.
When I just sit them in and screw it on the falling or nothing.